Today I've got a fantastic success story for you. We have prevented a fraud. Now I say we because you, my viewers, have subscribed to my channel, which has spread the word so many more people watch the channel and many more people can glean from my guidance how to prevent themselves from being scammed and defrauded. Such as one viewer who very kindly let me know that there was a dispute going on with eBay, which I'm going to tell you about in this video. So welcome back to my channel, but if you are new to me, I'm a barrister who helps you understand law. Not as a replacement for formal legal advice, but as guidance which I hope will be valuable both in demystifying the law and, as in this case, helping you to avoid being scammed by such fraud. So in this story, one of my viewers contacted me to say that they had a free phone upgrade from their network provider, but they didn't need the phone, so they decided to sell it for cash. Now, they decided to sell it on eBay, being a successful eBayer for some 4 years or so, having an excellent seller report. That's important, and it will come back a little bit later in this story. In fact, they had almost zero derogatory or negative comments on their account whatsoever. This was an iPhone 14 Pro Max 256 gigabytes in purple. So we're talking about a significant amount of value here. They listed the phone for sale on eBay in early December, and the buyer that contacted them was trying to rush them for the postage and for receipts. Now, this is the first point that I'll pause in the video for a little bit of extra guidance, because when someone is rushing you to do something very quickly, there might be a genuine reason for it, but more often than not, it's a bit of a red flag that if someone is pushing you to do something quickly, time is of the essence, and very often that is a red flag that this could be a scam. And indeed, it turned out to be the case, but listen on. The sale was concluded at £1,300 and delivered just a few days later. Only within literally minutes of it being delivered, the buyer filed a return request saying that it was not as described. The buyer uploaded photographs of a different phone box, not an iPhone 14 box, but another one, containing what looks like tiles or brick inside the box, claiming that this is what they received instead of the actual phone. Now, there were a few messages exchanged about calling the police and so on, and on the face of it, without more, the seller might have been in a very difficult position to prove that in fact they'd sent this iPhone 14 as opposed to a box with bricks. However, the seller tells me that they'd watched my videos before about when sending or receiving valuable items to film the process of packing them up and shipping them off. Just as if I receive an item, I always film the opening of that item in case it's broken or just non-existent. Because there are many stories in the newspapers just recently where someone has received something, anything from a box of cereal to a box of bricks, just as in this case here, instead of the item that they've actually paid for. Now, when you get eBay or Amazon or whoever is in the middle, the merchant here or the third-party seller on Amazon or something like that, where you've got this situation where there is a dispute as to who is right and who is wrong, it's very often difficult for the merchant, the provider, be it eBay or whoever, to decide who in fact is telling the truth. But this is, as I always say, where the evidence always comes into play. Now, on the one hand, the buyer had provided photographs of what they claimed was received, and the seller fortuitously has filmed the process of packing up this phone, and so that they also have some evidence to show that they've sent off an actual phone. Now, you remember when I said earlier that the seller, one of my viewers, has an impeccable reputation on eBay, having been a top seller for over 4 years. This reputation of the seller, along with the somewhat new account reputation of the buyer, obviously formed part of the decision-making process to decide in this dispute, who ultimately decided in the seller's favour. Now, if you were selling something like this on eBay and it's worth to you £1,300, and instead the buyer disclaimed that they received a box of bricks and eBay refunded them, then obviously you're down the phone or a significant amount of money. Now, some of you, I understand, may be less charitable towards the seller and say just perhaps the seller is the one at fault here and the seller did in fact send a box of bricks. Now, to that I can say eBay can only intervene on an assessment of the evidence before it, which would include the reputation of the parties, the evidence presented by each party, and whether or not the parties have made complaints with the police for allegations of fraud, and so on. And in this case, the seller has told the buyer that the matter will be reported to the police, the phone has been blacklisted, and if the police are interested in investigating it, then they will have all the details. But as you'll probably glean from some of my other videos, which I will link in the description below, that's probably not going to happen. So ultimately, eBay took the view that the seller was telling the truth and the buyer submitted fake photographs. Now, the seller says that they process hundreds of orders a day, which obviously we'll have records of, and ultimately, as I said, can only decide upon the evidence that's before it. Now, this goes back to what I say in virtually all of my videos. The only real way to prevent yourself from falling or being victim to these scams is to gather as much evidence as you can and to keep all the evidence. In fact, I have yet another venture that I'm setting up, which is going to be at evidencelocker.co.uk. So that it's going to be an app which makes it easy for you to lock away evidence securely so that you know that you've got access to that evidence whenever you need to. There is absolutely nothing there at the moment. It is a concept, so if anyone is interested in working with me on that, do hit me up at my contact details in the description below. But for me, evidence is always key. It's one thing to say what happened, it's another to have some evidence of what happened. Just recently, in fact, this morning, we were told of a document that was supposedly in existence in April of this year, and the exact contents of it are paramount. However, when we look at the EXIF data on the document, it shows that it was only edited and created earlier this month, i.e., whatever it was that was in this document before then could have been changed, and there's no proof that its version today is that which it was back earlier this year. So I really have to thank all of you, my viewers, for sharing my videos to spread the word and for listening to it, because I've had a number of emails like this where the process has been filmed and it's proved useful. Some of you guys have even told me that you've been to court and won your case because of skills for examining witnesses or other parties, or simply presenting your case properly. Or in this case, filming the evidence to a degree that eBay was obviously satisfied with that evidence in conjunction with everything else presented to them to avoid this fraud from taking place. So I hope you found that interesting. Please do continue to share my videos. Make sure you like and subscribe, because that's how YouTube will also share my videos. And as always, thank you for joining me.